second picture?
Is it focused?
Yeah, that's okay. It's recording right now. You have to put it on. Okay. So I just summarized for the things so you get it afterwards and try to get you think. So neutral question, right? One question. We write answers with a criteria. Be clear, argument, answering the question. Critical thinking evaluation, internal critique. Is it clear? Is there an argument? Does it answer? And is an answer different than another one? Because we don't want to repeat, right? Anything missing, we refuse. Next step, comparison, external critique. What do we do? Well, let's suppose we take two answers. Question, should we obey? Should we obey? Yes, because, or should we obey your parents? Yes. Should we obey your parents? One says, yes, because I love my parents. Second, yes, because the law says children have to obey their parents. Okay? So we have to do this. But don't forget, we've accepted this hypothesis for 2 and 3. So then what's the job? The job is to say, for example, one possibility, we're going to compare what is the issue between those two answers. If they're different, what's the issue between them? What's the proposal? What's the issue between them? Yes, because I love my parents. Yes, because the law says so. What's the issue between those two answers? Anybody wants to try it? Yeah?
One's based on obligation, that is based on feeling.
On feeling. One is feeling. What kind of obligation is the second one? Legal obligation, okay? So this we have two visions of the world. A child tells you, functions by legal obligation, and another one functions by feelings, by, this kind of thing. It's huge, right? Both say you obey your parents, but not for the same reason. Or should you obey the teacher? One says, yes, I want to learn. The other one says, yes, because I was going to punish me. One is in fear, the other one is in desire to learn. So you do this kind of comparison, yes? You do comparison, you compare, you identify what are the crucial concepts in one and the other, yes? But see, to do this, you have to ask questions, And that's where you meet the crocodiles, right? You ask a question, you answer something else, or it's not heard, or this kind of thing, Or let's say, for example, one says, what happened here? One says, you hear an explanation, when you hear somebody's explanation, but what's the difference? I don't know the example, but anytime you say, who agrees, who does not agree? If someone does not agree, okay, what is your objection? You listen to the objection, and you go back to the other one. Do you agree? You don't agree. If they agree, problem solved. They don't agree. Let's see, what does the group have to say? So the idea of the group collectively will decide, because see, let's say we want to make a distinction. I'll write in red the distinction. One is fear, for example, say, one is be punished, I write fear, suppose, and one is wanting to learn. So we write this on the board. And say, who accepts this analysis? Who does not accept it? Now, what does not accept, maybe because he thinks it's wrong, maybe he has a better word to propose. Yes? And we listen to it and we see, So, all right? Is that okay? Yeah? Okay. So the idea is every time something is proposed, before we definitely accept it, we can write on the board, we see who accepts, who does not. And then after some discussion of who accepts it or not, the group will decide if we accept the analysis. Now, this is, by the way, very important. When we do this critical critique, we're not asking you who you agree with. We're asking you to establish a distinction. You see, there again, the kids, they'll want to choose. No, you don't choose. Choosing is another exercise. That would be, for example, to say, which one is the best reason? And you can ask the kids this. What's the best reason to obey the teacher? Fear of wanting to learn. And then you can do this. But always make sure that they do follow the question. If you ask them to compare, then you should not hear a choice. You should hear what is the issue between them. If you ask them to choose, they should choose. But if you ask them to choose, and they tell you what is like this and what is like that, they're not choosing. And if you ask them to compare and they're choosing, they're not doing the job. And that's why it's very important you're clear on what you're asking. Because you cannot ask the kids to be clear what you're asking if you're not clear yourself. right?
So when you ask them those two initial concepts, okay, you've got the group clarifying fear and, you know,
Wanting to learn, yeah.
whatever. So the group, does you then say who agrees with that as the concept?
Yeah, it's a pair of concepts, that's
Yeah.
cool. You have to produce a pair of concepts. See, the idea, every time you produce two ideas and want to compare them, you should be able to produce two concepts that accounts for the difference,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
a little like this, yes. So what is your question then?
So you're asking the group who agrees or doesn't agree with these concepts,
Yes?
whether they match or they've come out of the statement.
Yeah? Yeah, we ask them, do you accept this as what can explain the difference? Yes? So we ask who agrees, who does not agree. Yeah? Now, not everybody has to agree, but since as we have to take a decision, if it's to define the difference, I would ask that the majority finally agrees and we go with it. What is worth? If it's wrong, we don't do it. If we decide what is best, I don't do this. I say because that becomes more personal. What's the best reason for obeying your parents? You know, is it because of the law? Is it because of because you love them? Is it because you trust them? Is it because of what? Then I would do it, but why not? The group can decide together. I don't care, you know, the group can decide or not decide. Yes. But the important thing is always to have this back and forth between the individual and the group, the individual and another individual, and this, and not just go animal. Because if someone wants to answer your problem, if one starts deriving the discussion, you know, then I say, well, are you dealing with it? Are you answering the question, or are you moving out? Sometimes they say, okay, yes, I'm in the discussion, but so just who thinks is in the discussion, who thinks not. See, I use the group. I use the group as a governing body. You know, instead of saying, hey, you're outside. You know, you're going. I don't do this. I use a group. Now, sometimes the groups are strangely. And generally, the groups act pretty well. It functions pretty well as to keep things on track. You know. Yeah.
When it does act strangely, what do you do?
Well, what can I do?
Like say
I
someone,
throw myself through the window. Well,
Yeah.
what can I don't know what you want me to do.
like say for example, there's someone who's being really disruptive to the classroom, and you ask the class, you know, should this person leave? And the class
You're talking about behavior now.
Oh, yeah, something like that.
You're not talking about ideas, you're talking about behavior, which is two different things for me, yeah?
Yeah.
One thing is say, one guy started having crazy behavior problem, and the other is ideas, which are a problem. So two very different things.
Yeah, I mean behavior.
Or behavior. So then what is your question?
So if we apply the same thing to the whole class dynamic,
Yeah.
not just the ideas but behavior, and we say to the class, should this person leave the room?
Okay, I have two strategies on this. The first strategy, unless somebody really has a problem, like strange. Sometimes, for example, I get this the other day. A little girl, she was not answering my question anymore. So she's interrupted, but still, I asked her. I see, you look, I'm not Australian, I think they meant to be foreigner. I'm not Australian, I say, something I don't understand because she's not talking to me. Can somebody explain to me what it means here in Australia when somebody goes like this? I don't know. Can somebody translate for me? Because physically she's telling me something, it's a little routine. But I don't know what it means, you know? Who can translate for me, you know? And then the kids there say, well, she's pouting, she doesn't want to talk to you, and this is, so I go back to her, well, which one is the best one, you know? So, so I try to use stuff like that, you know? Or if a kid so now I try to make that the group us together. If somebody has a strange behavior, I take my naive look and who can tell me what's going on here? And he says, what is the problem, you know? So I make it as an object of discussion. I never ignore what's happening. I never. It's a principle of a philosophy workshop. Everything is part of it. Just like sometimes you see I pick up on the slightest word you introduce a little more actually. Oh, what is actually here? Because I mean that has a lot to do with philosophy. To be astonished, you know? And anything that comes up like that, of course, you have to decide on something. Go. But I like the idea of, what's going on here, you know? Just to make people astonished, to make people awake, you know? So a behavior, you know, either it's, I put it as an discussion, that's really a problem, you know, where you can't do anything about it, then it's another thing. Then you have to take your authority thing. Oh yeah, it's one thing I use sometimes with the kids, which, you know, I say, you know, if everybody has like that, you start moving on. You know, I say, I have this thing, you know. I say, are you tired? I tell the kid, you know. You see, when I do this, I'm tired, you know. I'm hard to concentrate, I'm tired, you know. So I tell her what I do when I'm tired. I don't want to see people anymore, so I just go back, you know, and go outside, I rest a little bit. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. I take a nice chair, you know, and I put it down here, you know, say, tell you what, come, sit. It's a nice chair. I put it myself to show him, you know, it's not a big thing. It's not bad, come. And I say, you stay here, then when you're better, you come back inside, you know. So that's the intermediate thing I use. Already I move a little bit, but I want to make it look like a punishment, but you know, just you get a sense of something like, right? Like and then of course, then it's extremely prominent. You can leave somebody like crazy, you know, something. But I try to distinguish moment where I get a group to deal with it, the moment where I have to move in because I'm responsible for the thing, the moment where sometimes look, it's impossible for some reason. But generally it doesn't happen much. Except I go to some schools where, you know, there's kids who are psychological cases, you know, so but I won't go through this now. But with ideas, no, with ideas, like you see, when somebody says something strange, I say, well, what do you think the others would say about that? Initially, I go with the others, and I start thinking, what do you think the others would say about that? And that works pretty well. If you've seen it, that you start, people have access to reason. It's a strange thing. And people, as you've encountered, you can distinguish between your personal thinking and what reason tells you. And that's this experience I want the kids to have, you know, so I try to do this. But sometimes I go explicitly, okay, who thinks this is a problem? Raise your hand and ask them, why do you think this is a problem? So the idea is that you use the group as a regulative body. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So the idea is to compare ideas. Yeah. So anyway, anytime there are two ideas, we should not say, okay, let's have another one. Well, wait a minute. First, what is the issue? And take the issue here, fundamental. Do we decide things through feelings, or is it the law that decides that? And every time, all the time, there's no exception, you will come up on major issues. All the time. And when you come up on major issue, that's you have done your philosophical work. But then if I, look, this kid here operates in the legal framework, the other operates in a sentimental framework. Good, okay, fundamental, yeah? But you want to get to that, you see? You don't want to say, oh, there's another idea. You want to get to this point where you identify important philosophical issues. But that's your job, to stay, to make sure you analyze, you compare, and generally when you compare, you always get to the third step of the Hegelian, you know, dialectics, you come to some concepts. And generally a pair of concepts that will oppose them. Yes, and then the job is done. But in 1 hour, you will see 15 or even 10 ideas, and often you will have come up with 5 ideas, but you will have done really intensive work on this, you know. Now, if you worry that people want to give you their ideas and all this, there's another thing you can do. You get everybody to read his idea, you know, like the answer, and then you say, okay, for example, who wants to compare 2 ideas? So everybody else says his idea, you know, if you want people to express themselves, you know. Or who has seen an idea that's really opposed to his? So he says, oh, John is really against me. So you put John here on the board, you put Mary, and let's go comparing John and Mary. Yeah? You know? Okay? Any question on this? Yeah?
Are you cautious not to influence children?
Yeah, well, yes. I have a little problem here. Huh?
So if they ask you for your opinion, you won't give it to them?
Can you answer that?
Just checking.
You're slippery.
Just checking. Oh, we got an inspector here. Okay. You work for the Transport Motor Vehicle Department? Okay. Yeah, any other question? That answers? Okay, you're good?
No other questions.
Anything else?
You're slippery. Like
Huh?
a fish. You are a fish.
So, thank you for sharing. Any more? My daddy went on a trip. I love that one, you know? Because it happens all the time. So, you know, I call it my daddy went on a trip. I like giving these little you know, like for example, in France they use sometimes the characters of cartoons, you know. And do you know here Tintin and Milou, the little dog, white dog, Tintin? You know him?
Yeah,
No?
yeah.
Okay. Because you know there's the two policemen here. In French they're called Dupont and Dupont.
Yeah.
What do they call it? in
Thompson
English?
and Thompson.
Okay, Thompson and Thompson. Now Thompson and Thompson, as I don't know if you know here, but they repeat. One says, "Well, it's a nice weather today," and they say, "Oh, I would rather say it's a nice weather today." You know, they all do that. So when a kid saw the same thing, he said, "Have you done Dupont and Dupont?" And they laughed, you know, because they recognize the thing. So I try to use not to give abstract names. I use things they know of to recognize the sharks, you know, so the crocodiles, right, to recognize the typical thing. And this you see a lot, you know, repeating, you know. And so, especially with small ones, like in kindergarten, you know. Okay, exercise for anybody in kindergarten here? Did you have no one would give you that? Kindergarten said 4-year-old. Who wants to talk about something? Okay, what do you want to talk about? I want to talk about tigers. Okay, tigers. Yeah, that's good. Tigers. Now, who wants to talk about something else? I don't know what do you want to talk about? Tigers. Let me see. Did somebody already say that? No. So there you go. Well, did anybody hear anybody say that? You know, and you know, Jimmy said it. Did you say tiger, Jimmy? Yeah, I said it. I go, John, Mary, did Jimmy say tiger or not? You know, so you say yes, you say no, right? But then they get trickier, you know. Now what's it? Okay, what do we talk about? Animals. Oh, wait a minute. Do you remember what Jimmy said? Oh yeah, he said tigers. And what do you want to talk about? Animals. Wait a minute. Is that the same thing? Or is that not the same thing? Yeah, that's difficult. I cannot answer that. It's undeterminate. Actually, it is both same and not same. But I'm not concerned about the real answer or the absolute answer. Let's see what they're going to do. So let's see how they're going to argue this thing out. You know, we're an Aristotelian problem here. The species and the gender. Genus, species and genus. Interesting problem, right? So I want to see how they're going to deal with it. I want to say, well, tiger is an animal. Okay, so it's the same thing. Yes, but the animals as well, they're roosters or hippopotamus. That's not the same. So we listen to the argument and they'll decide. The group will decide, say, okay, who votes for the same, who votes different? Now wait a minute, how come I get more votes than there's students in the pupils in the class? Because some vote twice. What's going on? So what we count, okay? We have the class number here, you know, and it's supposed to fall right. But sometimes, you know, we just can't make it. After 4 times, we still get more or less. Wait a minute, what's going on here? Is there a problem? Okay, I tell you what to do. Everybody's watching everybody. We're all supposed to answer once and only once, okay? You're supposed to see. If you see somebody that votes twice or doesn't vote, you watch this. We're watching each other. You know? So, what's happening? The kids, they get out of themselves. They start paying attention to the others instead of going, you know, like this, waiting just, you know, for themselves. So all these things are made to, it's like critical thinking, but adapted to 4 years old. Instead of saying he's wrong, he's that, he said, did he do what he's supposed to do? You know? You get them to be, it's funny, Peter, you like that. They have to be class conscious. It's an old it's an old Marxist concept, class conscious. So they have to be class conscious, yes? Yeah. You know so you see this kind of, so the whole point is to get, to be able to get out of oneself, you know? Like I invite you, just don't be stuck with yourself and be with the others. So the whole thing is, how did in French be mise en scène, like the director he does to the theater, what do you call this?
Mise en scène.
Oh, okay, that's déjà vu.
Mise en place, mise en place.
Hein?
Mise en
Mise en place, mise en scène, déjà vu. Okay, all right. It's a bit cliché, no? Anyway, so you do this fast. Any question, any comment? Yeah.
So once we get to comparing, or looking at conceptual differences, and once the class has identified the conceptual differences, I'm not clear as to where we then, do we provide a synthesis at that point?
I don't need to. I mean, when we've identified conceptual difference, and you have said, look, there is a worldview based on legal and a worldview based on feelings, I mean, we've done the job. We can move on to the next hypothesis, and you'll see how the next one, if you come up with something new. But basically, you have done what is called. Have you studied philosophy or no? You know, have you heard of it? Phenomenological reduction. You know, that's the principle used by phenomenologists. You have a phenomenon, and you try to come to what is the fundamental issue there, and then you go. You know, you've done your job, right? You know, what else can you do? What?
We were looking for a conclusion.
Yes, but that's a conclusion. Look, once I've said, look, there's a conclusion based on a legal outlook, a thing based on thing. Well, good. What conclusion do you want to have? You know, we have identified how come. When I was asking, how did you come to different things? So it gets at, well, it's just because we have different opinions. It's just because we have different personalities. You know, this. Allow me. Bullshit here all the time. It's meaningless, you know. Well, we're different people, you know, but it's here. But you came with a reason why they came to different conclusions, because you have identified their difference of perspective, the difference of world outlook, the different of world vision. And there you become conscious. For example, if you are on a legal perspective, well, it's because for you this is you're not into a more sentimental perspective. Now, why is that interesting? Do you know the concept of axiology? Axiology? No? Okay. The axiology is the hierarchy of values. Okay, that's the definition. So, any society, any group, an individual, you have a hierarchy of values. And what's interesting here is that you identify from where you speak. What is hierarchy of value? Is it the moral value that's primary? Is it an existential value that's primary? Is it a social value that's primary? And all of you, with a very simple question, for example, this is a funny way, what's important? That's what's important, or what's important, just wait. We would identify that you don't all have the same axiology. Some of you will think that human relationship is primary. Others will say that your personal existence is primary. And please don't tell me that you go for all of it. You know, it's meaningless. You say, oh, but for me everything is important. That's the biggest sense. You know? It doesn't mean that all these things count, but necessarily you have priorities. Yes? And to be conscious. And if I can let through a little provocation, I'm sure that most of you are not conscious of your own priority. And if we make a little exercise, which we'll have time today, or the next time, we can make an exercise and you would be maybe surprised of what is your priority in terms of your axiology. All the time happens. And you can only do this by comparison. There's an exercise I do when I train teachers called Vision of the World. The exercise is the following. You're dying tonight. You will die. I know this, you know. You have a half hour to write your testament, your will, your intellectual, yeah, but you can see your testament, your last word, what do you call that? Your intellectual, you wouldn't see your intellectual will, you would see your intellectual testament.
Yeah. Will and testament.
Okay. But, you know, what do you want to contribute to humanity before you do? What is the important message you have? You have a half hour before you die, you want to tell them. You have 1/2 page, or 1 page maximum. Then we take this, right? We go right. Then we put it on the computer, so everybody gets everybody's will. Then we're supposed to compare. Or you compare in the form, in the content, in the way of reasoning, and all this. Very interesting. But of course, you see things that in the absolute, not comparatively. What do you say? Well, somebody speaks a lot about himself. I don't speak of society. So, how do you qualify your testament? Well, I don't like the word egocentric. Nobody said it. You just said, you know, because you speak for yourself. But so you're concerned with you, right? Yeah. And of course, we don't want, for example, I'll give you an example. Some people don't want to be concerned about themselves because that's morally wrong. But visibly, they're concerned with themselves. And philosophically, there's no problem with this. That's a Sartrean or existentialist worldview. You know, the only reality is me. The others is, you know, secondary reality. Others will be God. Others will be, I don't know, environment. Others will be whatever. Yeah? But people, when they do this, they're very surprised to the conclusions which we arrive in this kind of exercise. But a vision of the world, that's what, when you look at a philosopher, that's what you want to know. You know, when I study philosopher, how does he, through which prism does he look at the world? What else do you want to do? What is there to be solved? Nothing. Yeah, nothing to solve. Solving is when, for example, there's a contradiction, and then you want to see how you can work it out. Then solution makes sense. But when you have, say, one thing like this and one thing like that, what do you want to solve? There's nothing to solve. You just have two different visions, and you have identified the difference. You have produced what's called an antinomy. An antinomy, like subjective. Oh, this one is a subjective worldview, you know. For example, you know, is ice cream good? No, ice cream is bad because the taste, you know, because the taste is too sweet. Yeah? Okay. No, ice cream is bad because it has a too high calorie content. Who wants to do it? An antinomy, two concepts accounting for the difference in those two answers. It is bad because it's too sweet. It is bad because it has a high calorie content. Who can qualify those two hypotheses? Good, Janet? Aesthetic and health. Okay, that's an example. One is concerned with the taste, it's called aesthetics, right? And the one is concerned with the health. That's two fundamentally different outlook. Yeah? No. And for fun, I say this because I come from a country where before anything we were concerned about the taste of food, but here you almost so concerned with health food. You know, almost food it goes with health. You know, and it's very strange. You know, what I care. You know, I don't care totally, but that's not my first criteria for food to be healthy. It's good, you know. But anyway, different culture. You know, so that's why I bring that up. You know, yeah, there's all these organic food stuff, vegetarian, all this stuff here. Yeah, you know, is it healthy? Does it contain this? Does it contain that? Is it good? You know, these are the Puritans here. You know, that's okay. Right? Anyway, so question, comment. So I described something where I started from a general question, general questioning, right? Let me give you another exercise, which based on a narration. Although you do this, just give you some written stuff, you know, narration exercise. Narration. Narration. So first there's a text, right? So the text, what you're raising your hand? Scratching. The text. So one way I do this is from like what you see with the thinking stories of Phil Kam or others. I ask a question. Right? Let's ask a question. And I don't know if you do this, but I ask again. If people write, I like the idea of writing. Everybody writes an answer. Then again, like here, we have internal critique. Why? First of all, you write an answer to the question, right? And secondly, of course, like in the other way argument, you have to justify it. You know, why do you think Paul hit Peter? Okay, so they have to answer that. And of course, you have to go to the text and find one reason why you say it. Now, maybe the text probably doesn't say why. That's why I'm asking. If the text would say it explicitly, I probably wouldn't ask that, because I'm not doing, and that's the difference. See, I write these exercises in this in the language course. Now, the language teacher already does that. He wants just to check the understanding, and he will ask factual questions, yes? So if you ask why did Paul hit Peter, most likely because the text says it, right? And that's, I see as a difference with a philosophical question. The philosophical question implies interpretation, implies analysis. The French teacher doesn't go a little bit. You know, I'll take one step further. So the way I present the philosophy exercise in France is a prolongation of language exercise. And for the fun, in other countries, like Norway or Switzerland, it's not a prolongation of the French language exercise, it's a prolongation of religious exercise. Different context, yes? You know? So you have to see, I don't know here, in what context you do this. So what are the angles for the philosophy word? It's language, it's probably language, language literature. It's religious, because in some country, like I'm going to Luxembourg now next week. I'm going to Luxembourg. And Luxembourg had a big project, because before, until now, there was a Catholic country. they were teaching religious education. They decided to introduce an alternative, which you can have what they call non-religious morals, secular morals. Yeah. So I'm going to be part of the project to see how we can establish this. And the idea is then that's introduced. Then in some other places, it's in Spain. The big thing is citizenship. The big word citizenship. So discussion has been introduced as a mode of citizenship. Right? So there are different angles. So come back to the text. So ask a question. What they have to interpretation. Why did Peter, hit Paul? Right? They have to figure it out. So they have to write an answer and to justify with the text. What is it in the text that justifies this? And of course, like I said, it's not said explicitly, so they have to find. And by the way, the big trick here, the big cop-out to state is to say, oh, the totality of the text. That's the classical one. Oh, the whole text indicates that. Well, I always say that's like bullshit. Everything is nothing. It's the same thing. So I say, well, then they say, find one sentence that can account for it. Either you write it or you indicate which sentence it is. And of course, a sentence never explicitly says that. So say, but no sentence says that. I know no sentence says that. That's the whole point. So you have to say, which sentence would most account for this? Yes? Which sentence would most account for this? So that gets kids to have a very close relation to that. And by the way, that's for people. I wrote a criticism. It's called a quick glance at the Lippmann method, which is a criticism. Actually, it's not so much criticism of the Lippmann method as much as the way it's done. But there's one thing I criticize. It's the concept of stimulus. I really don't like it. I'll tell you why. Because you start with the text, people the stimulus, and then there goes the discussion. Who knows if the text is existent or not? Now, I like the idea that the text is something important, and if we start from the text, it's part of the discussion. And if I want to make a statement, I can, but I like the idea to say, well, does the text say something about this, right? So I don't like it so much, but that's probably because of my cultural thing.
Yeah, I think that traditionally people did use the text, go back to the text. Why? How is your question connected with a particular sentence?
All right.
Because I think paragraphs are all numbered. The sentences
Okay,
are numbered,
okay.
so you're supposed to go back.
All right, so some people do this, yes, yeah. But I've seen a lot where it's like the text did not exist anymore. I say, well, bring the text as part of the discussion. The text, he started, so let's have him there. Anyway, so you have a question, justify the text, what you want to talk about, right? So anyway, so then we do the same thing. All the kids can read their question and say, okay, listen, see, same thing, internal critique. Did they answer the question? Is it clear? Did they produce an argument? Right, so far, right? And if two kids answer differently, all right, what's the difference of answer between Paul and George, right? And we can then say, if it's compared to the text, the objective subject, do you think one is more appropriate than the other? Then we can make the choice, Which one has a more appropriate answer than the other? Yeah? So you can actually spend a whole time just to see how different kids answer the question. And while doing this, you have done a very intense work on the text itself. So that's a narration exercise. So one way is ask a question about the content. Another way I do it, especially with the small kids, I say, let's say there's a text with some people, I say, choose somebody you like in the story and say why you like that person. Who do you like best? Or it can be the contrary. Who do you like the least in the story? Which is interesting because it's working critical thinking, negativity, Who do you like the least in that story and why? And then qualify this person. So that, but always the same thing, examine hypothesis, compare them, this kind of thing. And let me add the third one, among others, I like to use. It's call that example creation. Often we don't use examples. So there's a question like here, but instead of answering abstractly, you're gonna have to answer from an example. So everybody has to write a little example, short, hyper short story. It's a very small thing. And then we analyze each example, or one example, see what does it tell us about the question. I say, okay, are we free? And kids say, okay, he's gonna write a story. Well, I was at home, and my friend called me, and he said, can you come over to play with me? So I asked my mother, Can I come over to play with Johnny? My mother said no. Ask her why. Because no is no. Okay, so conclusion, we're not free. Okay? So, okay, there's the story of Johnny. Let's examine. Who think the Johnny answering this, who think Johnny's story proved that we were not free? Who thinks it is? And so on. Who thinks it's clear? Who thinks, you know, this one. And then we examine. But all the time, the same principle I use. Always stick with the first idea, with an hypothesis, with something, analyze it, compare it, blah, blah, before you move to something else. So it's not so much you work with many ideas, but you work a lot with few ideas. And that's a bit the rule of thumb I use, you know, in the way I work. You know, because that's what I do when I have to do philosophical work. That's what I have to do. I'm not asked to produce many ideas. I'm asking to work around some ideas. And that's the major difference between philosophizing and also, and how do I work an idea? I analyze it, I deepen it, I argue for it, then I examine its limit, how it's wrong, where it's limited, and then I see to produce some concept that can enrich, you know, the reflection.
You were making a comparison there, you said philosophy deepens ideas rather than immediate work. What was it?
Well, it's intensive rather than extensive. Instead of, we work a lot on some ideas instead of producing a lot of ideas.
Which is the task
Of just having a discussion. Then oh, I have an idea. And in fact, if you have a journal discussion, there will be many more ideas. You will say, oh, but a lot of ideas were not said. Well, thanks God. That's the idea. Yes, I'm glad, you know. Or teachers say, well, normally, you know, they talk more than this. Well, I say, thank you. That's sure I've done my work. It's not what I wanted to talk a lot. Then that's another exercise. That's sometimes the confusion there is. If teacher wants the kids to express themselves, okay, fine. Yeah, let's do that, and thank you for sharing. But that's another. They talk much less in the way this way than the discussion. That's the idea. That's a choice. If you want to speak a lot, that's another problem. As long as I describe, I just published 2 books in French on it, and I try to distinguish the philosophical discussion about the discussion. A discussion. In French, we have a thing called What's Up. What's Up is on Monday morning. The kids, they come and they can say whatever they want, but something over the weekend bother them. Do you have such a thing here?
Yeah, show and tell.
What do you call it?
Show and tell.
Show and tell. Okay, so they feel good, they're happy, so way to start the week. Some kids preoccupy them, so that's fine. And some say it should not prohibit you from doing this, but just know it's something else, you know? And the kids, they know different. They have 2 different. Say, one is that in the show and tell, there is no why. There's no why. The why for them is, there's no why. And the second thing, in the show and tell, you don't have big ideas, you know? So that's the 2 differences that we're making. Yes. So it's different. It's different from the class. Do you have class council? Class?
Yeah.
Where you discuss problems, how to solve them?
Some
What do you call it?
Some people might, some people.
What do you call that?
Yeah, class meeting.
Class meeting. It's not a class meeting. Class meeting, you discuss problem, take decision, you know, it's okay, what's the problem, take decision. It's not the same thing either. It is not brainstorming. Brainstorming, throw like ideas, that's another. It is not evaluation of if you have learned your lesson, you know? Okay, you know, see, it's not. It is more specific, yeah? Because I'm trying to show through this, there are different types of discussion in the classroom, yes? You know? And it's not because you discuss it, it's because, we had a good discussion about life, love, death. Happy, very good, why not? But for me, that doesn't make it philosophical. Otherwise, everybody's a philosopher. Everybody, they don't need me, I lose my job, you know? You don't need me. In the bar, they speak about life, love, and death, you know, and football as well, you know? So, you don't need me, you know, just need a drink, you know? Anyway, so that's it. So, is there any question, comment? Okay. It's bad, I couldn't show you. The only thing, I didn't show you a consultation a little bit on television. I told you. Unless some people, official thing is 4:30. Are we in a rush? No. So if some people want to, I can show you a bit. If some people want to stay after the official time, we'll cut you. You want to show extra? I can show you a bit of consultation. It works, and with a person, I can show you one if you want. See this? So if you have to go, then you go, right? But first, do you see? So is it clear a bit? Something? No. Again, I'm proposing you. See, I did this the last because for me that's the last thing. I didn't start with that. I'm showing you this, but that so to give you a handle on some recipe stuff. But that's the essential. The essential is what we did during the day, identifying problems, making conscious, analyzing problems, that we become conscious, I hope, all of you, of the kind of things stopping us from thinking. That's the main thing, right? And that's why people, I was in Venezuela, and people center philosophy children, P4C, accuse me that I make people confused, because they had a very good idea of how to do things. I come and just do this stuff and say, oh God, we're lost now because of Oscar, because I don't know this thing. And they say, and plus, if that's philosophy, then what are we doing in our classroom? Yeah, well, okay, philosophy is, in a way, making you confused because you don't know where you are anymore. Good. Of course.
You said philosophy helps us recognize and stop us from thinking.
Yeah.
Being confused is also
Sure.
paralysis of thought.
Well, yeah, but it's paralysis, but at the same time, it's a necessary moment. When Dante calls the wall of fire. See, confusion is when you're shaken up in you have a cognitive dissonance. Yes? What's going on here? And then you sort of, otherwise you're in the routine, in the refrain, in the what do you call this in Wagner? The leitmotif, Huh? There you go again. There's Janet. Yeah, I know, she told me 100 times, and there's Oscar, And we all do this, and it's normal, We have certain things we repeat, okay. But the moment of philosophy, the moment where it's shaken, And I was telling yesterday, because my friend here, after Norel, I did her consultation, and after she proposed to do one to me. I said, okay, let's do it, and she consultation. And I had contradiction in what I was saying, but I said, I told her that's normal. The difference is not between people that have contradictions and people that have not. The different people that have contradictions and want to see them, and people that have contradictions that don't want to see them. By definition, a human brain is not self-transparent. Of course you have contradictions. God, The question, do you want to see them or not? That's why, don't worry, But as some teachers want to be very proper and clean, Mr. or Mrs. Clean, everything is fine when I do, Okay, why not, But that, I like mess, you have to create some mess, like art. Philosophy is an art. There has to be some mess to be real, Huh? Yes, you're a messy guy, Peter. You can mess with Peter then. Okay, so that's basically the thing. I have some text, I know people did slip. I have some text in English on my website. You can look at, A couple of practical things.
Can you write the website?
Yeah, it's my name, Brenifier. But you know my name, Brenifier? It was on the other thing you got. Just add .com, Brenifier.com. Oscar is my first name. We have two names in our country.
The website, is it just...
It's Brenifier, that's my family name. Oscar is my first name.
Is the website just Brenifier?
.com, yeah, with the W's and the HTTP and all this nice stuff. Brenifier.com, yeah. And if you don't, you just Brenifier on the web and you'll get it. You have to take her to the movies tonight. So how would you? Okay. So what am I gonna say? Yeah. So one thing. Second thing. I had some very nice proposal maybe to come back to Australia, to do some schools. So I have my impresario. You can write me or tell Janet, if you have. Because the idea, of course, is some financial implication. So if different schools are interested, or people or whatever, we can join. But when that's what I do. I go to places when I'm invited to see.
So is everybody a member of VAPS? Because that's a best way of finding out what we're arranging.
Otherwise, get out.
Yep,
Yeah.
get out. Yes. Each or not?
I think my school
The school is, that's right. Deb's not. Sorry. Yeah, anyway, I'm just reinforcing that the best way to keep in contact with us would be through apps. You may want to know what's happening in
You can
Australia.